Hello, everyone. My name is Leah Mushet. I'm a reporter here at the Western Standard, and today our guest is Franco Terrazzano. He's the federal director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, and recently he's covered a lot on the CRA. And basically, I want to talk about it since there's been, for example, like the 17% accuracy thing when they take calls, which is wild. Yeah, so I wanted to ask him some questions about that since he seems to know a lot. So Franco, thank you again for joining us today.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Okay, so first things first, I kind of also wanted to talk about the tax filing consultations that Carney announced earlier this month on the 10th. So basically they did a bunch of, what's it called? Consultations. They did like surveys and stuff for like a month, September to October. And then the next day they announced that they were going to do it and introduce it in 2026. So why don't you tell us more about that? And like, do you really think that Canadians like fell for this? Like, this seems like, they didn't even really listen. Yeah.
Well, the consultation was a sham, right? Like, let's be so for real here. Canadians had until, I believe it was Thursday, October 9th to give their input into the government on automatic tax filing. And then the very next day, October 10th, Carney makes this announcement. Like, there is no way that government bureaucrats pulled an all-nighter going through thousands of email and survey submission responses from Canadians before sending Carney out hours later to make that announcement. I mean, look, it's a really bad look for Carney to ask Canadians about their opinion and then ignore Canadians' opinions, right? It makes it just look like government consultations are a sham, and that's a real shame.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's really wild. Like, I don't know, like, but how can they, genuinely my question, like, I just don't get, how can they think that they would fall for this? Like, what do you think they were thinking when they did this?
Well, they probably just hoped that Canadians would notice, right? They probably just hoped that it was only a small portion of Canadians that would notice, and that's why the Canadian Taxpayers Federation called Carney out on that, because it just makes it look like it's a complete sham of a consultation. But, let's get into the actual heart of the issue, because automatic tax filing is such a bad idea, right? And the number one reason that automatic tax filing is bad is because it's a conflict of interest, right? Having the CRA as both the tax collector and the tax filer is a serious conflict of interest, right? You, as a taxpayer, you want to keep as much of your own money as you can. The government wants to take as much money from you as it can, right? Well, who's going to win that power struggle if the government gives the CRA the role as both tax collector and tax filer, right? Expect your tax bill to go up. I always use this analogy, but trusting the tax man to do your tax return is like trusting your dog to protect your burger, right? That burger is gone, and so is your wallet.
Mm-hmm. And like on the justification they put on their the government website, it was about how low income people are the ones that are going to benefit the most from this. But it seems like, wouldn't they be the ones to benefit the least from this? Because also on top of that, it's basically like they're being the person's accountant, right? Basically.
Well, like, what's that old saying? The road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? Like, here's the heart of the matter is that, like, there are already solutions out there that are free, that are voluntary, that are private, and don't include expanding the power of the CRA over taxpayers, right? Like, I mean, just go on Google and you'll find numerous searches of businesses offering free software to Canadians with modest income and simple tax solutions. But you don't even have to rely on the business community, right? There are free and voluntary community tax clinics for people with modest incomes and simple solutions to get their tax return done for free. And like also too, like if we're talking about the people who are struggling the most, right? Think of potentially a homeless person living on East Hastings. Well, automatic tax filing isn't the solution to help those people, right? Like we're talking about, in many cases, the government doesn't know who they are, doesn't have their full information. And in many cases, those people who are really struggling, they don't have access to bank accounts. Many don't have access to phones or even computers. So automatic tax filing is not a solution to help those people. And you know, for people who are modest income and people with simple tax solutions, the solutions are already there, and they're already there for free outside of government, right? So essentially what the government would be doing here is forcing taxpayers to pay for more bureaucrats in Ottawa to deliver a service that is already being done free outside of government.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, okay. So you kind of like basically hinted at like what this would end up doing, especially since the fact that, what was it? I remember you wrote in one of your other articles that like they answered like 36% of their calls in, was it like, I forget what year it was, but maybe you could help me out with that.
I think that was the previous Auditor General report. And so the Auditor General, okay, so this is crazy. The Auditor General wrote this scathing report back in 2017, where like the CRA barely picks up the phone. And when they do, they get a whole bunch of questions wrong. Well, the Auditor General just updated the report, right? Just came out. And like the craziest point of this whole report is that as a Canadian, when you call the CRA and you're asking the CRA a question about your own personal taxes, the CRA is only giving out the right answer 17% of the time. like it's almost so laughable. Like you can barely even understand how that's possible, right? Like it would be bad enough if the CRA got the wrong answer 17% of the time, but they're only getting the right answer 17% of the time, meaning that they're giving you the wrong information on your own personal tax questions 83% of the time. So like you trust these guys to do your taxes, right? Like
like, and you even were talking about the amount of bureaucrats that are in the CRA, and also you're talking about the complicated tax act, like it's like 3,000 something pages or something like that, and you're saying we should simplify it basically to make it easier. Like how did it even? I just want to know, how did it get to be that bad, like, and so complicated to begin with?
Well, it's pure political incentives, right? Oh, these politicians, let's do, this niche tax credit here, another niche tax credit there. What about this subsidy? Let's introduce this subsidy. And like over the years, it's those types of incentives that lead to the monstrosity that is now the Income Tax Act, right? So you brought up this like dichotomy, more bureaucrats or a simplified tax system. Well, let's get at the heart of the matter here, right? When you ask the CRA about your own personal taxes, they give the right answer only 17% of the time. So we don't need more bureaucrats at the CRA giving out more wrong answers. No, I mean, what this Auditor General report shows is that the tax code is so complicated that nobody has any idea what's going on, including the CRA bureaucrats, right? So the obvious solution here to make tax season simpler for both taxpayers and the tax collectors is really to simplify the tax system. And let me just throw out a comparison here. So the Income Tax Act is now 3,600 pages long. For comparison, that's about the same size as the entire 7-book Harry Potter series, right? So you want to make tax season simpler for Canadian taxpayers, then you got to simplify the tax code.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Let's see.
Well, hey, let me jump into the bureaucracy, because here's another thing, right? The CRA is one of the biggest, most bloated arms of the federal government. Okay, the CRA already has more than 50,000 bureaucrats. Well, let's do a little comparison again. In the US, the Internal Revenue Service has about 90,000 bureaucrats for a much bigger tax base. So here in Canada, there is one CRA bureaucrat for every 800 Canadians. In the US, there's one IRS bureaucrat for every 3,800 Americans.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. On that note, I guess, do you think that since you've been like working at the CTF for a few years now, I just want to know, do you think like the CRA is one of like the worst in terms of like how many employees they have versus the effectiveness of their actual work?
Well, I don't know how you get much worse than the CRA. Like, I mean, like, this is not even like from me stating this. I mean, look at the Auditor General report. I've said this a bunch of times, but it's so crazy, I'm going to repeat it, right? When you call the CRA and ask a personal tax question, they give out the right answer, 17% of the time? Like, is it even possible to get much worse than that? And then, okay, let's talk about business taxes, because, we all know that the business community has a difficult time dealing with the CRA. But even with business tax questions, it's like a coin flip on whether or not you'll get the right answer from the CRA. And even then, the completeness of the response is like 30%. But hey, all of that assumes that you can get a CRA bureaucrat on the phone. And that's a huge assumption, right? Because like the Auditor General also found that only about 32% of Canadians' phone calls actually made it to a CRA bureaucrat.
Yeah, I think that's all the questions I had for you today. So thank you very much, Franco. I appreciate you coming on. And yeah.
That was fun.
Thank you. Okay, if you guys enjoyed this whatsoever, you should check out our website. It is $10 a month if you subscribe, or $100 a year. Yeah, also check out our YouTube channel. It's Western Standard. And yeah, thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye.